I'll call this Board of Zoning Appeals meeting scheduled on June 4th in order. Ms. Savage, would you read the roll call for us, or take the roll call?
David Cash.
Here.
Stefan Wanamaker.
Here.
Gary Gross.
Here.
Thomas Evans.
Here.
Jerry Heidenreich.
Present.
AJ Mentel.
All right, thank you. Now, if you all would join me in a pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right, next matter then would be the approval of the minutes for the May 7th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Do I have a motion to accept?
I move to accept the minutes of May 7th.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cash.
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker.
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Mr. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Heidenreich.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the first application before the board is an area and dimensional variance request in case number 14-25. Ms. Savage, would you take us through this one, please?
Absolutely. So this is a request by applicant Tesla for an area and dimensional variance for the property at 4780 Roosevelt Boulevard to allow for the removal of curbing for the installation of electric vehicle charging dispensers, where Chapter 121804, Section G, subsection 5 of the Middletown Development Code requires all parking areas to be bounded by curbs. The property is zoned in the city's 01P Planned Office District. At its core, the purpose of the 01 Office District is to provide for areas of general office and non-retail commercial uses that support community needs within small-scale developments. This district may also serve as a land use transition between residential uses and higher intensity uses, such as commercial uses and high-volume streets. The purpose of the plan component of this district is to provide an opportunity for creative and flexible land development where a base zoning district will not accommodate the proposed development, but where such development will further the purposes of this code in the city's master plan. So the Middletown Development Code, Chapter 121804, Section G, subsection 5, states that all parking areas subject to this section shall be bounded by curbs with a minimum height as approved by the Development Code Administrator with consultation from the city engineer. Such curbs may be made of concrete, stone, or similar material, but shall not be made of asphalt. The applicant asserts in their application that Tesla needs to remove curbing to make the accessible charging dispenser flush with the asphalt to create clear floor space, allowing accessibility to the charger. The applicant states that clear floor space is required in front of the accessible EV charger in order for the charging post to be in reach range per ADA requirements. The applicant does not believe, if granted, the variance would affect the delivery of governmental services or negatively affect the surrounding properties. Per the Middletown Development Code, the requirement for legal notice for variance requests and meeting notice letters for the proposed area and dimensional variance were sent to all property owners contiguous and directly across the street or public right-of-way of the subject property. No comments have been received to date. This is their variance application. These are their site plans submitted to the city. This is your area and dimensional review criteria. This is the applicant's time limit in our appeals process. And that concludes my staff report.
I guess I should have sworn you in before you started.
Oh,
You were
that's-
just reading from
No, you're fine.
the application. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. All right. Any questions for Ms. Savage regarding this application, dimensional and area variance application? All right. Hearing no questions from Ms. Savage, I'll open the meeting now to anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application. If you would come forward, I'll swear you in and take your testimony. Anyone in favor? Not seeing anyone in favor of this application, I'll ask if anyone wishes to speak in opposition of this application. Not seeing anyone wishing to speak in opposition, I'll close the public portion of this meeting. Now that we don't have anybody here, Ms. Savage, I expected the applicant to be here. Are there any rendering? Oh, are you the applicant, sir? Oh, well, sir, did you wish to speak to? Yes, yes. Step forward here, and I'll swear you in. I'm sorry if you didn't hear me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And if you'd identify yourself, please.
My name is Andrew Vega. I work with SSC, part of the applicant.
Okay.
So as described, the curb cutting is for ADA accessibility, as the wheelchair needs accessibility beyond the curb to reach the dispenser. Without that accessibility, the reach cannot be obtained.
Will there be any curbing behind the dispenser?
So the dispenser unit is placed on a prefab concrete foundation. So in effect, it's its own curbing.
Okay. And then behind that, it'll just go straight to grass?
Right.
Or landscaping or something, but no concrete?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So the need for this variance is to ensure ADA compliance?
Correct.
And that's the sole need for it to be. So I'm assuming that, so we don't have any renderings, and I was going to ask if there were any renderings of these chargers as you anticipate they're going to be installed. Is there any reason why curbing could not encase each one of the electric chargers?
It would prevent, each one of those stalls being accessible.
I'm talking about behind it.
Oh, behind.
Because a person that's going to bring his car in, or his or her car in, to charge is going to park in one of those parking spots.
Right.
And of course, they will access the charger from the curb side or the lot side of the curbing.
Correct.
And so these chargers are going. How many chargers are we talking about? 3?
There are
Look like 3 if I.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
total of
That's the right picture.
Yeah, I think there's
8?
8.
Okay.
Looks like 8.
So there's.
yes, there's eight charging stations.
So let's see if I can get the most advantageous.
Yes.
I can understand. I think I understand why the city wants curbing, not only to prevent cars from driving into the grass, but to maintain an edge from the grass area and the parking lot to prevent deterioration of the asphalt and a couple of other. I'm sure there's other purposes for that.
Yes. So on page, let's see here, C6
C6.
and CD1. Keep going here.
I guess I'm just wondering why, since now there are going to be 8 chargers, so that's going to be quite an expansive lot that has no curbing. What's the distance? Can you give me the distance for these 8 chargers?
On C1.
I had a hard time looking at these overheads because I'm not an architect, and I just had
About 76 and a half feet. 76 and a half feet.
6.5 feet. Then you're asking that you be allowed to eliminate the curb and install 8 chargers on you said concrete pads?
Yes, a prefab concrete.
What's the dimensions
It's
of those
the
pads?
whole length of that.
Oh, so it would be one pad, well, no,
It,
it'd have
the
to
way
have,
they,
have to have
they
joints.
deliver it, yeah, they connect it to each other to
Right.
be contiguous. So,
I guess I'm just wondering why a curbing couldn't be installed on the grass side of these installers to accomplish the purpose for curbing.
I believe that that would put the curb behind the chargers.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if it bulged out, even if the curbing's here, and you've got eight chargers here, that curbing could be, sounds to me, could be easily installed around the perimeter of the charging pads, and in between the grass and the
Yeah, I believe I understand what you're saying.
if I had something, if I
Yeah,
could draw it for you, I would.
I'm imagining it. So
Well, if
behind
Ms.
each
Ms.
charging
Savage,
unit.
would you go back to the photograph with the lot? There you go, right there. So if we took, let's say 76.5 feet, go from the first hash mark there, the first white hash mark, go up 5 of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to have chargers right along, I guess, the edge of where the parking spots would be, correct?
Yes.
And so between those chargers and Roosevelt Boulevard, the main thoroughfare there to the north, is it just a cost factor in not installing curbing around the chargers? Is that it, a cost factor?
It's not a cost factor. It's
Because it
just,
seems to me very, very plausible that that would be the solution here, is simply install curbing around. I guess I'm questioning the need for a variance when the solution seems to be a fairly simple solution to comply with the code. You see what I'm, you see
Yeah.
where I'm going?
yeah, I'm envisioning
Yeah.
the existing units that are deployed around the nation.
Well, I understand that, but we got Middletown code here.
Well, yeah. So I'm just trying to picture what
Yeah.
you're explaining. It's not a cost factor
Well,
here.
Is it, okay.
It came
It
from
was
the
just
design.
a factor of, if we don't need it, we don't need it.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Casey, can you go to, it would be drawing C1?
C1, that's what I thought too. You got a red dotted line on there. When I looked at that, I was wondering,
Is there any way to blow that one up, or no? Oh, boy.
I mean, I've got a set I
Okay,
can
if
hand
you-
over.
it's on a first
We've
page.
got them. But if you look on C1,
Yes.
towards the grass side of this installation, you see that red dotted line. And that's what Mr. Cash is basically, I know that's not the edge of the concrete, that's some other grade limit, but a curb in that same shape, but just on the edge of the prefab concrete installation.
Okay. And that wouldn't infringe upon any existing setbacks?
Well, we can't answer that question for you, but is that something that planning has, well, this hasn't been discussed with you, so you weren't prepared.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what the setback there is. What,
Solution.
can staff tell us what the setback is?
I'm not sure off the top of my head what the setback is. We would just need an amended plan or revised plans from you, because these have been approved by our city engineer. And so I would need a new set of plans, and they would have to go to him for review as well.
So the engineer has approved the plans as presented.
Correct.
Obviously they're not concerned about the development code
Yeah.
requirements.
Yeah, so the curbing of the lot is determined by the development code administrator, so it's in our planning and zoning. We just ran it by our city engineer to make sure they didn't have any glaring issues with
Right.
the proposed plans.
Right, thank you, thank you.
Do you have a, on our package here, we have that D1 drawing as a single page. Is that further deep in your package or slides?
Yeah, it's
Is it one of these ones?
Keep going, it's a single page.
It has the red line.
Oh, the red line? Is it, it's in the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, on our package, it's a complete page. I just wondered if you had one up there with a complete page.
I don't have one up here that's a
Okay.
complete
It was
page.
just in our pack, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I looked at that too, I thought that was where we were gonna move it, just like you said. I didn't know if the shape is right. But I mean, to me, that's a logical thing to do too. I don't understand why we just don't do that.
Let me ask you. Yes. Did you put the red line on this drawing, which is C1?
It says limits of grading, C note D1 or D2, I can't, so
You know
little.
which one I'm talking about?
yes, here, contractor to achieve a smooth transition between at-grade PSU foundation and existing grade behind. Yeah, that was put on for the plans that were approved back in,
Is that,
March.
is that line the boundary of the cement, or the concrete pads on which these chargers will be resting?
that boundary is shown with the black dash line there.
I just didn't know what the red line was. It says limits of grading, now that I can read, yeah.
I think that's the ground grading, Dave, to the concrete.
Yeah, so it slopes from the backside off.
So what's shaded then, what's shaded on C1 are the pads and the chargers?
What is in the dark shade, yes, would
Yes.
be the pads, the prefab foundation, and the accessible stalls.
Okay. It's the same thing. Any other questions? Sir, any other questions?
Yeah, I had one. It's maybe in here and I just can't see it. Do the chargers have either a curbing in front of them just for that charger or some sort of baluster to prevent people from running into it when they back up?
I believe on a few of these, I thought there was a ballast. The unit itself is secured on the prefab foundation, which is secured in the ground.
Right?
So you don't use bollards at other locations to prevent inadvertent driving into the chargers?
I've seen a few used, yeah, on the ends.
Okay. Not that that's, I think, necessarily before.
No,
Yeah,
just a question.
yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak? Well, I'll start with in favor again. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward. Anyone in opposition to the application, please come forward. All right, I'll again close the public portion of the meeting. Comments, questions by the,
I was gonna ask Ms. Savage, if you could go back to the picture of the lot again. So it does look like it does grade away from the parking lot. So
I have no clue.
what I was viewing was, once you expand with the charger base, you're going to be on a slope anyways. And I'm just trying to imagine curbing with that. On the backside, you're gonna have, I don't know what footage that is, but it's gonna be quite a substantial curb in the back once they start going into that grade. So I don't know if that's more of a retaining issue it turns into then, more than curbing, or what that would entail. But do we have the actual foot of how deep, how far deep it was gonna be?
It looks like
6 foot,
Was that?
looks like about 6 feet.
And this image might show better the,
Okay, yes,
The
thank
slope
you.
you're-
Thank you, that's the slope I was talking about. So if you go 6 foot in, it's almost as if the foundation is gonna be, like they said, the curbing you're gonna be doing a retaining wall behind it, pretty much, a small retaining.
Does engineering take into account the slope or the topography of the property around? You wouldn't know, I don't think. I don't.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
rhetorical, I think.
So all Claire told me is that she ran this by engineering and they gave it the green light, so.
I got a question on parking spaces. Are these parking spaces going to be restricted in any means so that it can't be used by a fueled car?
That I am unsure of.
Because I don't know how many other parking places you have on that lot for that business. And if you remove these 8 slots, so to speak, or whatever number it is that going to reduce the number of other people being able to park there if you restrict the access to these?
I'm unsure.
There's a number of parking spaces on the other side of that, of the White Castle building. And frankly, I've never seen, when I've driven by there, I've never seen any cars in those spots.
Yeah, they mostly go to the door,
Yeah, because that's on the side where the drive-through is.
well, okay, I'm just asking from a zoning
Yeah.
restriction type deal. If you're thinking there's enough, I guess I don't have any reason to argue with you.
And as Mr. Cash was saying, I think it would be an obvious resolution just to curb around the pad. Now that I see the more of the slope, it puts that a little bit more into question for me, as far as you're gonna be having the concrete pads come out. I guess you could put a lip around the edge of them. As the applicant mentioned, they kind of turn into a curb themselves.
Anybody else got any thoughts?
I don't know if there's any,
One thing is we got to realize we're going to get these more and more, the more electric cars we get, so.
And like I said, I think if it was perfectly flat coming out, it would be a no-brainer, keep the grade or a curb around it. The grade is the only thing that I have an issue with.
can I ask let me ask the applicant, sir, would you step back here again, and I'll reopen this, because and you may not. You notice, I think what Mr. Wanamaker was referring to there is, there apparently appears to be a grade change from the edge of the parking lot into the grass.
Yes, there appears to be a slight grade. I drove by
I
earlier.
mean, how does that affect the installation of your pad? Is, somebody said it was 6 feet wide, is it 6 feet wide?
Well, the area where it would be installed is about 6 feet wide. The pad itself is, let's see here.
It was less than.
That's about 8.5 feet, a little over that.
How deep did you say the pads would be from the edge of the 8 feet?
Deep as in,
Well, from the edge of the parking lot into the grass area. But if you look at this up here,
yeah, from the front side to the back side of the total install, about 8.
8 feet.
I could, 1 second here.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, you've installed these in other places, I take it?
Yes.
And is there ever signage that prevents other people from parking in front of these, so that the people that have electric cars, or is it just common courtesy?
It's just common courtesy. I do know that there's, even for the EV vehicles, there's a limit on how long they could park there. I think it's 30 minutes, and they get charged.
Any other
Any other
questions?
questions? No, I don't have a problem.
Okay, thank you again. sir. Maybe council can tell us, is there any, similar to handicap spaces, designated electric charging spaces? Is there any restriction on what vehicle can use it, gas-powered or electric? I don't think there is.
No, there's not. There's not a restriction on that. So, I mean, I wouldn't be, it could be used by gas or electric, and the property owner, might enforce it as they see fit, but not a state law on that.
And it was stated that a period of 30 minutes after which there's charging, that would be, I'm assuming, assessed by the owner of the property and not by law enforcement. I don't think there's any law enforcement capability there or responsibility there.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any law. I don't think the police would be involved in enforcing that kind of rule.
I guess my concern is there's a reason why lots are required to be bounded by a curbing. And I think there's a couple, 3 reasons why. Aesthetics, one reason. Migration of dirt onto the lots is another reason. Cars running off into the grass is another reason. And I know that the chargers themselves would probably prevent that, but I don't know. I seem to think this is a matter that the code was enacted to require. I think there's a simple fix. I'm not so sure I'm in favor of this application, but I'll entertain other discussion.
And I understand, my concern too is also encroachment from the surrounding lawn and things like that. But again, seeing the angle, I think coming straight out from that lot, it's gonna be a drop-off. So I think aesthetically coming in, you're still gonna see nice, clean concrete edge. I don't think that there's gonna be too much erosion going up into it.
True.
Like I said, until I kind of saw that angle, I was more inclined of having an additional curbing put on, but I think in this instance, I would be in favor of the application as it is. Being that aesthetically, I think it'll still be good from traffic, and also too, I believe the pads and the drop-off there will kind of act as curbing itself.
Makes sense. Anybody else? Any other comments? If not, anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the application. I would cite criteria 9, which I believe the spirit and intent of the code of having curbing and having a lot that has a perimeter and is well-defined. And I believe the other issues that Mr. Nyakash were talking about, I think is satisfied as well. So I would approve it, citing criteria number 9.
I'll second that, and also because the reason for it is an ADA compliance issue, that should be another reason we can put in there.
All right, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Cash?
Mr. Wanamaker, convince me. Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next matter before the board is, as soon as I find it, used to my oh, here it is. All right, this is application for a use variance, case number 15-25. Ms. Savage, would you run through this for us?
Absolutely. So this is a request by applicant Woodside Cemetery Association for a use variance for the property at 1699 Woodside Boulevard to allow for the establishment of a funeral home. The property is zoned R4 Attached Residential District. The variance requested is to allow for the funeral home use type in the R4 district, a prohibited use according to Table 1204-3 of the Middletown Development Code. So the property zoned in the R4 Attached Residential District. The purpose of the R4 Attached Residential District is to provide for moderate to high-density residential development generally located in the core area of the city and that reflects the historic urban development pattern in and around downtown Middletown. The applicant states in their application that 1699 Woodside Boulevard is currently used as a crematory. The applicant asserts that the addition of a funeral home is consistent with the surrounding property's current use and would bring convenience to its customers. The applicant does not believe, if granted, the variance would affect the delivery of governmental services or negatively affect the surrounding properties. Per the Middletown Development Code Table 1204-3 Principally Permitted Uses, the current use of the property is a cemetery categorized under the institutional use type, which is permitted with standards in the R4 zoning district. Some of those standards of the Development Code include the language that offices, crematoriums, mausoleums, and other buildings or structures necessary to the operation of a cemetery shall be permitted as accessory uses to a cemetery. Therefore, the crematorium located at 1699 Woodside Boulevard on the property is an approved accessory use to the cemetery. Per the Middletown Development Code Table 1204-3 Principally Permitted Uses, the funeral use type is not permitted in the R4 Attached Residential District and is not explicitly stated as an approved accessory use of a cemetery. The funeral use type is categorized under retail sales and services and comes with its own standards for use in other zoning districts. Per the Middletown Development Code, the requirement for legal notice for variance requests and meeting notice letters for the proposed use variance were sent to all property owners contiguous and directly across the street or public right-of-way from the property. One comment has been received to date from a neighboring property owner who felt neutral regarding the variance. They just had a few questions on if any additional new buildings were being constructed. This is their variance application. This is their addendum to their application explaining how they meet the use criteria. This is a map of the property showing the location of 1699 Woodside Boulevard. This is your use variance review criteria, the applicant's time limit in the appeals process. And that concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Savage? All right, no questions. I'll open the hearing to the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please step forward and I'll swear you in. Three of you would raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right. Who wants to take the point?
Sure.
Could you identify yourself, sir?
I'm Edward Schaefer, attorney on behalf of the applicant.
All right.
Gentlemen, Woodside Cemetery has been in business since 1891. It's an integral part of Middletown. And they are planning for future viability, as many other cemeteries around the country have been doing. As cremation rates increase, cemeteries cannot rely on in-ground burials alone. Creating properties that are both a cemetery and funeral home is a national trend that offers the public the convenience of one-stop arrangements. Locally, this has been done by Spring Grove Cemetery in Arboretum, Arlington Memorial Gardens, which are both in Cincinnati, and Rose Hill Burial Park in Hamilton. To accomplish this, the applicant wants to establish a funeral home at the existing Woodside facility, the Woodside Crematory and the Woodside Chapel, and the community room as well. The long-term goal is to build a dedicated funeral home building within Woodside Gates on the ground that has been reserved for their master plan. To meet the Ohio requirements, the applicant needs a building with a street address and certain interior features a certificate of occupancy that allows for the license of the funeral home and a funeral home director. All of the Ohio requirements have been met except for the zoning variance to allow for the certificate of occupancy as a funeral home. Transportation will be provided by outside contractors, not Woodside vehicles. Parking in the Woodside lot will be on the Woodside lot in streets inside their gates for any particular service. Woodside has over 6 miles of streets, so they have plenty of space for any type of parking arrangement. Woodside has performed almost 11,000 cremations for other funeral homes since they opened the crematory, and they feel that by allowing themselves to provide the service as a funeral home, that will allow them to, at least long-term, be a viable cemetery. And so that's what we're asking for.
Any questions? Sirs, would you two identify yourself in the event that questions want to be made, presented to you?
I'm Daniel Diver. I'm the general manager of Woodside Cemetery and Arboretum.
All right. Sir?
Byron Atkins, funeral director, embalmer, crematory operator, we need notary. Take
Overall
your pick.
gopher.
Right.
Any questions for any of these three gentlemen?
I'd like to ask, your location there as the arrow shows is quite a distance from the main gate there at the corner. And is there any thought of ever having a shorter access there so that you're not having as much traffic going that deep into the...
We chose that building.
Sorry to interrupt. This is John Roach, counsel for the city. If I can make a suggestion, just because all three of you are up at the same time, to either go one at a time or before you speak to identify yourself, just because we're keeping a record of everything that's being said, would be helpful to understand which witness is testifying.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, I'm Dan Diver. What was the question?
Question, my future home, by the way, so...
Sure. That building was chosen primarily to satisfy the state requirements. They have to have a building with certain interior features, certificate of occupancy, that sort of thing. We will use multiple buildings on the property, both the main office and the community room that's in the main office, our chapel for services itself, and the crematory. Our ultimate goal, though, will be to build a combined building, a new building on the property. That's many years down the road, probably 3 to 5 years. But this gets us started and satisfies the state requirements.
Okay, but for the current situation, you're just gonna, I don't know when you're having a service or you're showing, you are gonna have somewhat of a stream of people coming to see, I would think, and attend the service.
If it's a large service, it'll, or a visitation, it probably will be in the community room and not in the crematory itself. The crematory can handle probably 25 people, which will be sufficient for some.
I'm glad you're here to represent that position. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not a huge building. That's not our ultimate goal.
So, Mr. Diver, let me see if I understand correctly. There is the intention of erecting a small, a building there at the crematorium, or are you asking that the crematorium be considered the funeral home?
Yes, the crematory
Okay.
would be considered the funeral
Thank
home.
you.
It has a,
I figured there was going to be another building in there.
no, not at all. Not at all. We'll be using
You're just
existing
asking for
buildings.
a designation, an additional designation as funeral home through a variance process.
Yeah, to satisfy the state.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be no additional building in that location because it really is a tight spot.
Thank you, that helped clarify.
Yeah, that helped clarify that. Any other questions for any one of these three gentlemen?
Yeah, just one, Mr. Cash. If I heard you correctly, you said for a larger gathering, you would use a different site on the property?
Yes.
Where is that?
We have a community room that's part of our general office complex.
Okay, how does that impact is this as general for the organization or for this specific building?
I think the application is to designate, grant the crematorium a variance to be classified as a funeral home.
Right.
Am I correct in that summary?
Yes, but the state says it's perfectly acceptable with the state to use other buildings on the same property.
Right.
Okay, okay, that's what I was looking for. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward to be sworn. All right. No one coming forward. I'll close the public portion of this meeting and ask for questions or comments from the board.
I understand it now.
Yeah, I do
I was
too.
thinking it was a new building.
I was
Yeah.
too, so it
I just wondered from a standpoint of the other funeral parlors in the city, how they feel about this, but there's no representation.
I don't think you got it. We didn't get any response from any other of the funeral homes in the
No.
region.
I have no reason to object.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of a foregone conclusion. You already have a building that exists. Let's look at the use variance criteria. They all have to be satisfied.
I believe the applicant did a very good job of addressing this.
Yeah, and
On my review.
if everyone read that, it's a pretty good explanation in response to the use variance criteria. Any other comments? Anyone wish to make a motion?
You go ahead, you know how to put a number on it.
I'd make a motion to approve the use variance application. Upon my estimation, I believe all the criteria has been met and well satisfied. So I'd move to approve it.
I'll second it.
Call the roll if you would, ma'am.
Mr. Cash?
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Heidenreich?
Yes.
All right. Well, at this point in time, is there any old business that we need to discuss? Any new business?
Nothing from staff.
Nothing from staff, good. With that, I never know whether you need a motion to adjourn, but I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor, voice?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
I should have asked for a discount because that sounds like my plan in the future.